Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one-stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to another session of the Hindu News Analysis dated 19th January 2025. Let's have a look at the topics that I'm going to discuss today. The topics range from the GS paper 3, that is Indian economy, to science and technology, to GS paper 2, polity, international relation, to GS paper 1, social issue, as well as art and culture. So a sum total of 9 topics will be discussed, including one topic from yesterday's newspaper. In yesterday's editorial page, there was one article written regarding India's real growth rate. Let's have a discussion regarding that as well today. The whole objective of the discussion is to ensure that all of your requirements to ace the civil services examination from the current affairs area are taken care of. So if you like this initiative, do hit the like button and provide your valuable comments in the section below. And if you yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Before I start the discussion, we have already launched the Conquer Prelims initiative. 2 classes of polity and 1 class of international relations are already conducted. If you are yet to watch them, please do watch them. And today, continuing the same, there will be second lecture on international relations taken by Chetan sir, covering the current affairs from January to May 2024. And those of you who are preparing for the upcoming civil services preliminary examination, on January 26th, we are also going to start the Unacademy All India Prelims mock test. This will be prepared, that is, the questions will be prepared based on the latest pattern of UPSC. The questions are curated by the top educators, and once you appear for this particular test, you can also get the All India ranking. Please do appear for this particular test, and if you are interested, register by clicking on the link provided below. Now let me start the discussion. The first article written by C. Rangarajan as well as D.K. Srivatsava. Very important article. They are talking about what is India's real growth rate and forecast. Very recently, the first advanced estimates FAE were published by CSO regarding India's GDP growth rate for the current financial year, that is 25. According to the first advanced estimate, India's growth rate for this financial year will be 6.4%. This includes the first half of the financial year, where we have achieved a growth rate of 6%. And in the second half of the financial year, we expect the economy to grow by 6.7%. And the moment the first advanced estimates were announced, these came into picture. There has been a lot of discussion regarding what is the actual or the real growth rate of Indian economy. Many of the experts looking at the first quarter GDP growth rate, second quarter GDP growth rate, which were respectively 6.7% and 5.4%, have raised a concern that India is entering into a cyclical slowdown. That is where GDP is increasing, but the growth rate is actually going down. So there is a concern which has been raised regarding the slowdown that might be occurring or that might be happening in the Indian economy. Now, what are the points given by these experts or these columnists which they are talking about what are the possible reasons of slowdown in the Indian economy and what can be the solution going forward? Listen to me carefully. Whenever you talk about GDP growth rate, there are, or let's say GDP, there are different measures or there are different formulas to calculate GDP. The one formula that is used by these two columnists is the GDP through expenditure method. The GDP through expenditure method. That is essentially you take the sum total of consumption expenditure done by households, the total amount of investment expenditure, the total expenditure done by the government, either let's say in the form of investment in infrastructure assets or taking care of the day-to-day expenses, etc. In addition to this, we account for the export as well as imports. Now listen to me carefully. Today is the 19th of January. Tomorrow, 20th of January, is a very important date in the context of USA. Why? Mr. Donald Trump will take oath as the 47th President of India. And once he becomes the President, no doubt he will announce certain policies, but the columnists are basically saying, even with the policies of Mr. Donald Trump, the international trade is not going to change by much. The global trade is not going to change by much, which essentially means the last two components will not change by much for India for the next financial year. All of you able to understand? The X minus M may not change by a huge number for the next financial year. And here itself, please remember this. The X minus M for India is essentially a negative number. That is because of the exports being smaller in value compared to imports. The import value becomes higher. Hence, the overall output of X minus M is negative. But if you talk about the remaining three components, C plus I plus G, the authors basically say, or the experts basically say, the bigger problem for Indian economy right now is the government expenditure. I'll repeat this statement. This is a new thing for you. I know most of you are listening to the news analysis, and those who are reading newspaper in the last 1.5 months would have heard of only one thing regarding GDP. That is the consumption demand. That is the demand from the household side is going down. Yes, that is one of the concern, no doubt. But in addition to this, the columnists basically say the bigger problem for India is the government expenditure. Why so? The government expenditure, no doubt, can contribute to investment in the economy, can contribute to higher flow of money in the economy, can increase the demand for goods and services in the economy, and can also add to asset development in the economy. But compared to last year, this year, the government expenditure, I repeat, the government expenditure has been on a lower side. And for the current financial year, we have basically estimated a capital expenditure, that is a capex. We have estimated a capital expenditure of around 11.1 trillion rupees. That is 11 lakh crore rupees. Although 8 months of the current financial year already over, for which the data is available, we have hardly spent just over 5 trillion rupees out of this. That is hardly around 46% of the total capital expenditure that has been estimated for the current financial year has been spent. And these columnists are basically saying it is very doubtful that we will be able to achieve this targeted or budgeted estimates of the capital expenditure. Is it okay? This capital expenditure target which has been set up, we are doubtful we will be able to achieve. So what is the solution to all of this? The solution to all of this is to ensure that the government expenditure, at least in the next financial year, that is for the financial year 25 and 26, for which the budget will be announced in the next couple of weeks. 1st of February, the budget will be announced. That's on Saturday. So on Saturday, 1st of February, we are expecting a budget to be announced for the next financial year. So these experts are arguing that Government of India should ensure there is a higher investment expenditure from the government side, which will basically promote the cyclical growth, or let's say the idea of a virtuous cycle, which will lead to higher GDP growth rate as well as GDP in case of India. Done? But the problem in the current financial year, if you look at this number, many of you will simply say, sir, why there is a concern? Why there is a doubt whether we will be able to achieve this capital expenditure or not? The doubt is because the nominal GDP growth or nominal GDP number for the current financial year, when the budget was announced, we expected this to be around 328 lakh crore rupees. The nominal GDP number, we expected it to be around 328 lakh crore rupees. But as per the latest estimates, it will be much lower than that, somewhere in the range of 326 lakh crore rupees. And because we are going to collect a lesser amount, right? I hope you understand. Because we are going to collect, or let's say achieve lesser value of goods and services in the form of GDP, obviously the taxes collected by the government will also be lesser. The taxes collected will also be lesser. And if the taxes collected are lesser, this will lead to higher fiscal deficit. Correct? This will essentially lead to what? Higher fiscal deficit. Government of India, in order to meet the fiscal deficit, generally curtails, that is, cuts down the capital expenditure. Because the revenue expenditure, very difficult to contain them, very difficult to keep them down. Capital expenditure, yes. Revenue expenditure, right, we can cut it. Capital expenditure, very, very difficult to cut it down. That is the precise reason the columnists are saying that even though certain months are left out. And mind you, if you're wondering, sir, is it always common for the government to postpone the capital expenditure to the later part of the financial year? Generally, the governments do that. Generally, there is no rule, there is no formula for this. Generally, what the governments do is, they will front load the revenue expenditure and they will backload the capital expenditures. That is, the revenue expenditures which are done on day-to-day basis, government can't control it. They will keep on incurring the expenditure month after month. Whereas the capital expenditure, they will backload it. So that in future, let's say in the month of December, January, February, when you're about to close the financial year's accounts, you'll have that leg room, you'll have that freedom to basically adjust the capital expenditure in order to ensure that fiscal deficit will remain as a percentage, mind you, will remain in the same number or as the targeted in the budget estimates. Done? So these are certain very important concepts which have been discussed in the article. But in addition to all of this, there are two very important terms which are mentioned. That is, one, gross fixed capital formation. Remember this, gross fixed capital formation. The total gross fixed capital formation essentially has been estimated at around 33.4%. 33.4% of GDP for the current financial year. And they are saying there is not likely going to be any change, bigger change in the gross fixed capital formation. In addition to this, one more terminology which is associated with the concept of planning, which you must have come across under the chapter of planning, is a concept of ICOR. ICOR, incremental capital output ratio. Incremental capital output ratio. Incremental capital output ratio in case of India has been around 5. Please remember this. Incremental capital output ratio has been around 5, right? What does it actually mean? To have one additional unit of production. To have one additional unit of production, we are supposed to have additional capital investment of around 5 times. 1 unit and 5 times of that investment has to be done. And if you're wondering, sir, should the ICOR be higher or lower? My dear, please remember this. ICOR should be lower. If you're spending lesser amount of additional capital to produce one additional unit of output, the investment is considered to be much more efficient. In case of India, it is around 5. It's a worrisome point, or it's a cause of concern. GFCF is around 33.4 and right ICOR is 5. Now, those of you who are thinking, what is the use of all of this? They are telling me about ICOR. They are talking about GFCF, etc. What is the point of all of this data? My dear, all of you know the concept of Harrod-Domer model. Please do let me know. All of you heard of Harrod-Domer model? That is essentially G is equal to S upon R. What does the formula actually signify? The formula basically signifies that if a country wants to achieve a higher GDP growth rate, it has to increase the amount of savings and reduce the capital output ratio. Reduce the capital output ratio and increase the amount of savings. And why savings are necessary? Savings are necessary because the savings can be translated, can be converted into investments. Can be converted into investments. And let me ask a very simple question now. Can you please tell me, is the savings and investment, are they one and the same or are they different? Let me know. Do you think savings and investment, are they both one and the same or are they different? Please do let me know in the chat section or later in the comment section. So if savings increases and the capital output ratio decreases, this can help us in achieving higher GDP growth rate. And what these experts have done is, they have calculated the investment gross fixed capital formation to be in the range of 33.4% and ICAR to be in the range of 5%. If you do basic CSAT calculation, divide 33.4% by 5%. So they are estimating that for the next financial year, that is financial year 25 and 26, they are estimating that the GDP growth rate will be around 6.5%. The GDP growth rate will be around 6.5%. Okay, that is basically the formula. G is equal to S upon R, 33.4 divided by 5.1%, you will get in the range of 6.5%. So is it sufficient? Is it sufficient for India to achieve a $5 trillion economy in, let's say, a very quick succession? Is it sufficient to become a $30 trillion economy? Many experts argue that with a real GDP growth rate, this is a real GDP growth rate. Real essentially means adjusted for inflation. So with this real GDP growth rate, it will take a longer period of time for India to become a developed country. Right? It will take a longer period of time. So these are certain very important points which are mentioned in the article. And again, I reiterate this. This was in the yesterday's newspaper, that is Hindu newspaper, not in today's newspaper. Based on this, I've given one descriptive question as well as a MCQ as well. Consider the following statements. Nominal growth in the current year compared to previous year is a guarantee of increased production. Second statement, the government's interest payment on the public debt is a transfer payment. And the third statement, the GFCF, gross fixed capital formation, is equal to GDCF, gross domestic capital formation. How many of these statements are correct? Please do let me know in the chat section. If you are not able to solve this, okay, am I audible as well as visible for all of you? Please do let me know. Am I audible as well as visible? Can we continue the discussion? Okay. Second article, ceasefire in Gaza Strip. Starting today, for the next 6 weeks, the first phase of the ceasefire plan in the Gaza Strip will come into place. Now, there are certain experts who have certain doubts whether this particular phase-wise implementation, I'll come to that. There are 3 phases. Whether this phase-wise implementation, whether it will be successful in restoring peace in this region, or there will be certain significant hurdles. We'll understand that later. But let's be hopeful. Let's have faith in the process and let's pray that the bloodshed that is taking place, the war that is taking place in this region will come to a stop with the implementation of this particular plan. Okay, now what are the important points which are given in the article? For the last 15 months, Israel has been involved with, let's say involved in this particular region, that is a Gaza Strip, where it is fighting to eliminate the insurgents, or let's say the militants according to Israel. They basically want to eliminate and disband the concept of the Hamas which is present here. Now, whichever side of the, let's say the group you are, don't worry, whichever side you are, you will have your own arguments to support your stand. But the point here is, there was a particular plan which was put forward by the United States of America's government last year. And that particular plan was rejected by Israel. And make a note of this particular point as well. Although USA has proposed a plan earlier which was not accepted, USA is in favor of Israel. USA has protected Israel from international, let's say, criticism. USA has provided weapons, arms and ammunitions in this particular war to Israel government. So now, with the intermission, or basically with the intervention of multiple countries, including United States of America, there is a ceasefire plan which has been agreed to both the sides and which will come into force starting today. Now, earlier I said there are 3 phases in the plan. What are the 3 phases? The first phase will be implemented from today, that is according to the time in Israel. From today for the next 6 weeks, that is for the next 42 days, the first phase of the plan will be implemented. And in this plan, whatever prisoners have been there, or the number of prisoners which are there on both the sides, certain number of prisoners will be released, that is exchanged. That is the first point. Second important point is the government, that is the armed forces of Israel which is present in Gaza, they will withdraw from their certain positions, they will withdraw from certain regions, and they will allow the humanitarian aid which has been stalled, which has not been allowed to enter into this region. So this is exactly what will happen in the first phase. Once the first phase will come into force, from the 16th day, the negotiations for the second phase will start. And during negotiations, furthermore, prisoners who are present on both the sides, they will be released. In addition to this, in the second phase, we are expected to talk, that is both the sides are expected to talk about having a permanent end to all of the hostilities. We want to have a permanent end to all of these hostilities, that is the attack that is happening, the war that has broken out. We want to end these kind of hostilities. That is expected to be discussed in the second phase. And after this, the third phase discussion will start once we implement the second phase. Now, like I said, many of the experts have doubts regarding whether this particular stepwise approach will it lead to end of hostilities in the region. Reason being, when Israel started attacking, their agenda was to basically, like I said, dismantle or disband the complete Hamas ecosystem. They have been very successful in killing the top, let's say, the officials of Hamas as well as Hezbollah. They have been very successful in that. But at the same point of time, there is also a statement which has been issued by the Secretary of State of United States of America's government, Mr. Blinken, who has stated that no doubt many people in the Hamas at the top level have been killed by Israel, by the forces of Israel. At the same point of time, he also reiterated the fact that the Hamas also has been successful in bringing more and more people into their group. Whatever is the number of people they have killed, that is the Israel forces have killed, they have been replaced by new members by Hamas. So the argument here is, what was the original objective of Israel? Have they been successful in achieving that? Many experts argue, absolutely no. But then what are the reasons why Israel has agreed to this kind of a ceasefire agreement? Because the similar agreement was given or proposed by the USA government earlier also. What has changed in the last 8 months? Why Israel has agreed for the ceasefire agreement now? One of the reasons is the change in the administration of USA. The change in the administration of USA, Trump effect. Right? You can see the impact of Trump effect in almost all the activities, right, or international events now. You talk about international trade, you will see the impact of Trump effect in the next coming days. What about, let's say, the sanctions or tariffs? You will see the impact of Trump effect there also. And when the elections were being conducted in USA, presidential elections, Trump was very clear. He basically said he wants both the sides to negotiate and come to a ceasefire. He wanted both the sides to come to the table. So whether the current administration, that is Mr. Biden, accepts this or not, no doubt there is an impact of Trump effect. That's the first reason. Second reason why this kind of a change in the stance of Israel, that is basically because of downfall of Mr. Assad in Syria. The change in the regime in Syria also has prompted Israel to take a change in the stance. Reason being, Iran along with Syria and many other political as well as non-political actors, formed a grouping like this. They basically showed a resistance to the existence as well as the increased in, let's say, the importance of Israel policies in the region. They formed the axis of resistance. With the downfall of Assad regime, now the important member in this resistance axis is gone. So that is one of the reasons why the Israel says, okay, we are right now, because the connection between Iran as well as the Gaza, that is broken now. We are okay with the, right, let's say ceasefire arrangement or ceasefire agreement. And the third very important reason is the original, like I said, original objective was to basically eliminate Hamas altogether. But Israel says we have been very successful in eliminating the top officials of the Hamas, and we are okay with that as of now, right? So that has influenced, or that has basically forced Israel to come to the negotiation table and accept this kind of a ceasefire agreement between them as well as Gaza. Right? So these are the important points. Now, what are the concerns associated with this? What can happen in the coming days? The concerns are very simple. The ceasefire agreement has only provided what will happen during this particular, let's say, first phase and second phase. What is to be done, they have given. They have to talk to each other. A permanent, right, let's say, stop has to be put to all of these, right, let's say, events, etc. But what will happen after the implementation of the first phase? Because many experts say first phase will be implemented. Problem will come in the second and mostly in the third phase of implementation. To what extent Israel will withdraw from Gaza? That is a question. There are no details regarding that in this agreement. And whenever the final details are discussed, even if there is a small, right, let's say dispute, even if there is a small difference of opinion, the whole process shall break down. And history has shown this. If history is, right, let's say anything to go by, there have been certain events which have happened in the past. And that's a reason. The head of Israel, right, that is the PM of Israel, Mr. Netanyahu, has basically stated we accept the ceasefire agreement, but we will reserve our right to start, right, let's say taking action against, right, start taking action again if we are not happy with what is happening in the ceasefire agreement. But please understand the positive impact as well. What is the positive impact of this kind of a ceasefire agreement? Basically, the point number one is, understand this. Point number one, the bloodshed will stop in the region. The attacks will stop in the region. And mind you, since the onset of this kind of a conflict, thousands of people have died. And thousands of people have been forced to, right, basically vacate their homes and migrate somewhere else. So this kind of a human conflict, or this impact of conflict on the humans, will be coming down. Right? The people are expected to go back to their homes now in the Gaza Strip, and many experts said they may not have a home to go back. Although they are allowed to go back, they may not have a home, because during the conflict, many of these homes have been destroyed by the forces. So impact on human conflict will be controlled now. Second very important impact, the global market. Because of the conflict that is happening in this region, it has basically spilled over into Suez Canal. The vessels which are passing through Suez Canal of multiple nationalities are being attacked by Houthis now. It is expected that because of the ceasefire, these kind of attacks on the vessels will also die down, will also go down. And that will basically ease international freight transportation. International freight transportation. And this easing of international freight transportation is beneficial not only to India, but also many other countries. So these are some of the positive impacts of this, right, let's say agreement, ceasefire agreement, which has been agreed to both the sides in the Gaza. Okay, now, next article. Why fertility rates are declining in India? What are the reasons? And what can be the solution? According to the latest report published by Global Burden of Diseases, Injuries and Risk Factors for the year 2021, the report says the fertility rates in India have declined. In 1950s, the fertility rates were in the range of 6. The total fertility rate. What does it mean? How many children are given birth by a woman in her lifetime? It was 6 in 1950s. It has fallen down to 2.1. It has fallen down to 2.1. And it has further fallen down to 1.9 by 2021. And this is a cause of concern. It's a cause of worry. Reason being, there is a term called as replacement rate. Replacement rate in case of India is 2.1. Essentially, it means how many people should be born to replace, right, let's say one generation. That is called as a replacement rate. Very recently, that is in the last year, China also has faced the same issue. And India is not the only country, or China is not the only country. There are many other countries which are also facing the same issue. That is, the total fertility rate is on decline, which is a cause of concern. Now, in case of India, like I said, the TFR has gone down below replacement rate. What are the reasons? What factors can you attribute for this, and what is the impact of it? The factors that you can attribute to this is, one, the literacy or the education levels have improved for both men and women. And when more and more, right, let's say women or girls become educated, they will become aware of the precautions that they can take, or they will basically become more oriented towards their job security. Many of these will move away from India to, let's say, rest of the world, such as USA, etc. As a result of this, essentially, the fertility rates in India have fallen. And second, even the societal understanding compared to earlier in today's situation has changed. People are more oriented towards the stability of their finances. And to have stability of their finances, essentially, they will be more focused on the jobs rather than, right, let's say, increasing the size of the family. And even if they increase the size of the family, they will be worried they may not have sufficient money to take care of education of the children, take care of clothing requirement of the children, health care of the children, essentially providing a quality of life for their children. Right? And the rise in the nuclear families also has added to reducing fertility rates. So these are some of the reasons why total fertility rate in India has been falling down. But at the same point of time, what is the problem then? What is the concern? If the TFR falls down, what is the concern? The concern is there is more and more migration of the youth population from India to rest of the world. And when youth population migrates to rest of the world in search of better jobs, in search of better incomes, etc., the working population which is qualitative in this region or in this state might fall down. And as a result of this, investments in the region, for example, state of Kerala, investment in the region will be affected. Employability in the region would be affected. And as a result of this, the report states a lot of population from rest of India, because in Kerala, the standard of life is higher, the wages are higher. The population from rest of India is immigrating, is basically moving into the state of Kerala. Right? So this is basically the impact of all of this. In addition to this, if youth population will migrate, more and more senior citizens will be left out. And don't you think now there is a higher burden on the state to provide for health care of senior citizens? And that is a precise reason. I hope you connect it to current affairs. Lot of the chief ministers of states from southern part of India, they are basically arguing in favor of more and more children. They want women to have more and more children. Of course, their argument is have more population so that we will not lose out on Lok Sabha seats. Their argument is that, although they do not say it outwardly, their argument is if you have lesser population compared to other states, when the delimitation exercise will be conducted, we will lose out on the number of Lok Sabha seats. So we don't want to do that, have more children. But more importantly, please have a look at this data point. Please have a look at this data point. This is more of a social issue now. Right? The social issue is, if you see how much is the number of elderly people per 100 children in the southern part of India, that is in the southern states, the number is around 62. The number is around 62. For every 100 children, we have 62 elderly people in the southern part of India. Whereas in case of northern part of India, it is somewhere in the range of 39. And central part of India, it is somewhere in the range of 28. So please mention this particular point when you write an answer regarding the growth in the population or the demand for higher population. Don't always focus on the political angle, focus on social issue angle as well. Please focus on that angle. Okay, right? So this is predominantly the reason why there is a concern which has been raised regarding the declining fertility rates, especially in the states coming from southern part of India. Now, based on this, I've given an MCQ. MCQ number 64. Consider the following statements. Total fertility rate is also known as birth rate. The total fertility rate was included as a parameter for the 15th FC vertical devolution. India's total fertility rate is lower than replacement rate. How many of these statements are true? Do let me know in the chat section. Otherwise, just wait for some time. I'll give you the answer. Next article, Bhopal waste disposal. I've already discussed a lot of points regarding the Bhopal gas tragedy. I'll not repeat it. I'll just give you an update. Based on the court order, that is Madhya Pradesh High Court order, the state government, that is basically a joint operation between the CPCB, SPCB and the state government, they have taken the let's say the waste at the, let's say the Union Carbide factory, and they have moved it to one more place where the factory is set up, Pithampur. The last time when I discussed, the story went up till here. They basically moved it to a factory, TSDF, that is a treatment, storage, disposal factory or facility, TSDF, which is set up at Pithampur. And if you're wondering, sir, why only at Pithampur? Why not any other part of, let's say, the state of Madhya Pradesh? This is the only TSDF which is present in Bhopal or in this particular region. Is it okay? This is the only TSDF which is present. Overall in India, according to the website of CPCB, Central Pollution Control Board, overall in India, there are 50 TSDFs. But in the region, this is the only TSDF. So the waste has been moved from the Union Carbide factory to TSDF. And the last point that we discussed earlier was, there was a local opposition. There was a local opposition to basically disposing of this waste at Pithampur plant. The locals have argued that if you dispose, pollution will be caused. If you basically take some of this waste, put it in a landfill, it can leach into, let's say, water, which will hurt us, which will have an impact on our health in the coming days. And two people have opposed it and tried to self-immolate themselves, opposing this kind of a operation by the state government. Now, what has happened after that? The state government again has gone to High Court, has submitted all of these things. High Court has given 6 weeks, I repeat 6 weeks for the state government to basically dispose of and address the issue. Now the state government says, we will conduct one more pilot test. That is, we'll basically have a trial run. We will have a trial run. And it is not the first time that the trial run is being done here. Earlier also a trial run has been done. What do you mean by trial run? Some of the waste is disposed of using the same process that we want to use currently. And once you dispose of, what is the impact of that? Was there pollution because of that? Was the air polluted? Was the water polluted because of that? Now the data will be collected. According to the trial run which was done earlier, there was no major impact of, let's say, disposing of these toxic waste using the Pithampur plant. Although in certain regions the water level, let's say the contents of water level, the pollution in water in this region was seen to be increasing, many experts argued that first and foremost, even before we conducted the disposing of the waste, even before that, water was polluted. So it is more to do with the water quality, not with the disposing activities that we are conducting. So now basically they want to do two activities. They have basically brought in lot of experts, teachers, right, educators, etc. Now they want to give the information regarding what they are trying to do at this particular point to the people, or let's say the population residing in the region, so that the opposition will go down. And second, they want to have one more trial run where they want to dispose of certain amount of this material, then conduct a study, basically provide the information regarding what is the impact of the disposing, what is the impact on water pollution, soil pollution, air pollution, etc. to the stakeholders. So these are the two very important things that the administration is trying to take care of in the coming days in order to ensure that there is a safety disposing of this Bhopal gas waste. Done? So this is the update. Earlier we have discussed many aspects associated with this. This is just an update. Next article, SVAMITVA scheme. Regarding SVAMITVA scheme also, we have earlier discussed what is the scheme, what is the importance of the scheme. In a nutshell, we are using the latest technology, let's say drone technology, to conduct a survey of all these rural villages, create maps and submit, right, or use this data, give certain cards which are called as SVAMITVA cards to the landholders. Argument is, if they have the card, now they can mobilize the asset. They can use the card, borrow from a bank, use the card to show they are the owners of the asset, etc. Now in this context, Government of India yesterday has distributed 65 lakh more property cards, taking the total number of SVAMITVA cards to 2.2 crore. Total number of SVAMITVA cards now is 2.24 crores. Okay. Now this is point number one. Point number two, while distributing the card, it is not reported in Hindu, but please understand, while distributing the card, there is one term which was used by the Prime Minister. And these are the kind of terms which UPSC will pick up in the preliminary examination. Prime Minister used the term dead capital. Right? Remember this. Prime Minister used the term dead capital. What is this concept of a dead capital? The concept of a dead capital has been made famous by an economist by the name Hernando de Soto. He has written a very wonderful book by the title The Mystery of Capital, Why Capitalism Triumphs in the West and Fails Everywhere Else. According to the economist here, in majority of the developing countries, poor countries, especially in villages, the poor people are not able to use the land as an asset. Why? They do not have any concrete document or a, let's say, fail-proof document which shows that they are the owners of the land. And land is nothing but an asset, capital. Right? So understand this. The argument which has been put forward by this expert or this economist, Peruvian economist, is that because the people cannot use the land, it is a dead capital. Is the point clear? Because they are not able to utilize the land, it is nothing but a dead capital. And if you're wondering, he argues that even the government is responsible for it. Why? Government should have taken certain measures to clarify and give correct titles to the people. Right? But the government do not do that. They in fact create hurdles, create problems and restrictions for the people to utilize the asset. Hence, the land in that context has been used or has been referred to as dead capital. Remember, this particular concept can be asked in the prelims. So what is the use of a SVAMITVA scheme? One more reform has been mentioned in the article, Bhu Aadhar system. Bhu Aadhar system. Let me quickly ask you a very simple question. How many digits are there in your Aadhar number? Don't look at your Aadhar number. Don't check it in Google. How many digits are there in your Aadhar number? How many of you know this? In the same way, please understand, Aadhar is used to give identity to an individual. Using that Aadhar, we can identify which is the individual here. In the same way, under Bhu Aadhar system, another name for this is unique land parcel identification number. Remember this, ULPIN. ULPIN. It is being implemented by Ministry of Rural Development, MORD. Under ULPIN, we will identify the pieces of land and give basically a 14-digit number which is unique to that land parcel. Is the point clear? Under ULPIN, we will basically identify the pieces of land. We will give a unique number, 14-digit unique number to this piece of land. That is ULPIN, which was mentioned by the Prime Minister in the speech yesterday. So many states are implementing SVAMITVA, and along with SVAMITVA, they are also implementing ULPIN. And one more point associated with this, ULPIN is part of Digital India Land Records Modernization Program. Digital India Land Records Modernization Program, right? So this ULPIN is part of that. 29 states and union territories are implementing ULPIN. Done? Right, so this is, these are the 3 points associated with the SVAMITVA scheme. A lot of discussion is happening regarding SVAMITVA. Be very, very careful. Be careful. Questions can be asked on these areas. Next, little points, smaller points now. Right, little information. First one is safeguarding ancient forts. The state government of Maharashtra has set up a panel which will conduct a survey of all the ancient monuments and will prepare a list wherever there is encroachment. In all these ancient monuments, wherever there is encroachment, they'll prepare a list and give it to the state government. And what is the importance of this? In case of India, please understand, according to the government of India, there are 3,697 monuments of national importance. According to the information provided last year in the parliament, 3,697 monuments of national importance. And these monuments essentially are maintained by Archaeological Survey of India, ASI. And the minister basically also stated that in lot of these monuments, there is also a problem of encroachment. There is a problem of encroachment. That is, people who are residing in the region here have simply taken over the land. They have constructed, let's say, a shop. They have constructed their home, etc. So there is a problem of encroachment. And when there is an issue of encroachment in these monuments, it will have an impact on what is the original structure of the monument. No doubt, it will have an impact on the original structure. It will also have an impact on tourism activities in the region. And it is very difficult if these people who are encroaching will keep on destroying and taking away part of the monument as their own itself. So in order to achieve in order to address all of these issues, now the state government of Maharashtra has taken an initiative where they will survey all the monuments which are ancient in nature, and they'll basically take the help of the police, file an FIR and remove these encroachers. Free the national monuments or ancient monuments from encroachment. This is important point. Please remember this. Next article, Tele robotic system. Tele robotic system. The first indigenous developed in India. The first indigenous Tele robotic system, SSI mantra. It has come into news because it has been used for conducting 2 surgeries, 2 cardiac surgeries or 2 heart surgeries. And what is the importance of this? The availability of healthcare facilities is not spread evenly in India. Many of these specialists, right, or let's say the doctors who are experts in certain field, these are present only in certain areas, not throughout India. But imagine a person or a patient has to undergo certain surgery. They will have to literally go to hospital, which is far away, have to get the appointment. They will have to wait for certain number of days, etc., etc. All of this will add to cost. All of this will add to waiting period, etc., etc. So what has been done now? there is a new technology which has been used to conduct 2 heart surgeries at a distance of 286 kilometers. And why this distance is mentioned here? This is the longest distance between a patient and a doctor where technology has been used to remotely conduct a surgery. All of you able to understand this? This is for the first time at a longest distance where remotely, that is using technology, surgery has been successfully conducted. And the point here is, remember this particular name, SSI mantra is indigenously developed technology. It is indigenously developed technology. Is it okay? Now some of you might be thinking, how is that possible? It's not at all possible, etc. My dear, imagine it's a robot. Okay, it's a robot with multiple prongs or multiple hands. This is connected via internet. You are an operator. You are a doctor who is a specialist, who is an expert, who is expert in conducting all of these procedures. You will be sitting in another region. You will provide commands. You will input a directive. This machine will conduct operation or surgery in another place. And the experts are in favor of this kind of a technology. They are in favor. Why? The patients don't have to wait for a longer duration waiting for a particular expert. Even the cuts that can be done, they can be done very precisely. Right? The wastage of blood, because if you cut unnecessarily, there will be a lot of blood wasted. Right? A lot of recovery time also taken for the patient, etc. All of these are advantages associated with this kind of a tele-robotic system. But having said so, the experts also warn that the technology should be connected with uninterrupted internet services. Uninterrupted internet services. Right? That is also equally important. Right? The technology backup has to be there. Current or electricity backup has to be there. Internet, constantly high speed internet has to be there. Because imagine, internet is very slow. You will provide a certain command. Because of slow internet, that will reach the robot after 5 minutes. Latency has to be very, very small, very less here. Is it okay? Right, so that is the importance of this article. Remember the name of this robot, SSI mantra. Okay, done. Next, EPFO corrections. EPFO corrections. Right, what is the importance of this article? There are around 70 million subscribers to EPFO, Employee Provident Fund Organization. Employer will contribute 12%. Employee will also contribute 12% in order to ensure that they will get the provident fund later. But in historically looking at this, the organization, whenever there is an entry of a new, let's say subscriber, a new employee joins this organization, the company will do all the formalities. What if the person who is filling the form on behalf of the employee makes a mistake in the name of this the employee? What if the person who is filling up will make a mistake in mentioning the correct gender of the employee, mentioning correct address of the employee, mentioning correct, let's say, the employee ID of the employee, right? So I hope you understand, even father names a mistake. So any small mistakes which were done earlier, there was a huge process, a very lengthy process we were supposed to follow to get all of these corrected. Right? In fact, the process was, I will, as an employee, I'll submit an application to my employer. Employer will make corrective changes. Then the employer has to send it to the EPFO. Then the EPFO will make a change or will correct this from the back end. This will take a very long time period, and this is a very cumbersome process. For example, if you approach your HR, those are working in the company, if you approach the HR, do you think the HR will take up all of your work immediately and finish it off very soon? HR is already burdened. Right? The finance department is also burdened with a lot of these activities. That's a precise reason. Earlier, it was a very cumbersome, very lengthy process to make changes to any of these details. And forget about making changes to the details. Now imagine you shift from one company to another company. You shift from one company to another company. The PF account has to be migrated. That also was a very cumbersome, very lengthy process. The employer has to initiate it, right? The other company has to accept it. EPFO has to approve it. So very lengthy process. So what EPFO now has announced is around 70 plus applications. Around 70 plus applications which you needed to file through companies or etc. like this. All of this will be made online. All of this will be made available online. That is, I myself, if my Aadhaar is authenticated, I can directly use this feature and make changes. For example, I want to change my name. Change my name in the sense, spelling mistake is there, I want to correct it. I want to change my father's name. That is again spelling mistake. I want to apply for migration when I move from one company to another company. All of this can be done very easily online now. That is point number one. And what is the impact of it? According to the government data, 27% of the grievances, that is complaints regarding the portal, 27% of the grievances were essentially regarding these issues itself. Spelling mistakes, right? Date of birth incorrect, or let's say address is incorrect, or gender is incorrect. 20% of the complaints in the portal were basically on these issues. And when the complaints are so high in number, it will also put a lot of pressure on the officials who have to take care of these complaints. So by making these applications online, government wants to address all of these problems now. Done? Okay, that is one point. Next one, the last article for today, Kerala Governor's Address. Don't memorize what was the address of the governor. What is the importance of the article? In recent times, in multiple cases we have seen, there is a conflict between the governor of the state as well as the viewpoint of the state government. Be it West Bengal, be it for that matter Tamil Nadu, where again there was one more issue that has basically blown out of proportion now. There was earlier issue in case of state of Kerala also. So argument here is, one criticism says the center is using the governor's office to basically have an impact, a negative impact on the functions of the state government. Right? Have an impact on the state government functions, disrupt, create chaos, create problems. That is one criticism. You may accept it or not accept it, but that is a criticism, by the way. Now, as a ray of hope, as a positive outcome, there is one event. That is the new governor of Kerala, Mr. Rajendra Vishwanath Arlekar, has basically taken the statement that was prepared by the state government, wherein certain statements were critical of the central government policies, right? Basically, he has read out all of those particular points. For example, one point, criticize the central government for reducing financial outlay for the state government. Criticize the central government for removing or reducing many of the revenue deficit grants for the state government. So basically those points were mentioned in the address. The governor has read out all of these particular points without any reservation or without even walking away from giving the address. So basically this is a positive step, right? So essentially you can use this point as a writing point or as a let's say a supporting point when you talk about office of governor and the importance of the office of governor and the conflict with the state government in paper 2. Done? So these are the 9 articles from Hindu newspaper today. Now, what is the key answer for MCQ 63? Consider the following statements. Nominal growth in the current year compared to previous year is a guarantee of increased production. Absolutely no. Absolutely no. It is incorrect. Why? From last year to this year, nominal growth could have happened because of inflation. Extreme case, nominal growth could have happened because of inflation. So if the nominal GDP increases, is it a guarantee that the production has increased? Not necessarily. It could be because of, right, inflation as well. So first statement, no. The government's interest payments on the public debt is a transfer payment. Yes, it is a transfer payment. That is essentially when the money is paid and in return no goods or services are accepted, that is called as a transfer payment. In this case also, government has borrowed money. It is paying interest. It is not accepting any goods or services. So the interest paid on the public debt is a transfer payment. Statement 2 is correct. GFCF is equal to GDCF. Gross fixed capital formation is equal to gross domestic capital formation. No. Gross domestic capital formation is a sum total of gross fixed capital formation as well as change in the stocks. Change in the stocks. So you take the sum total of both of them, it will give you GDCF. So GFCF is equal to GDCF. No, this is incorrect. It is part of GDCF. Okay. Right. So right option is option A. Only one statement is correct. Okay. MCQ 64. Consider the following statements. Total fertility rate is also known as birth rate. No. Total fertility rate talks about how many children are given birth by a woman in her lifetime. Whereas birth rate talks about how many births for 1,000 people. Birth rate is different, right? Let's say the total fertility rates are different. Both are connected, but both are different, not the same. TFR was included as a parameter of 15th Finance Commission vertical devolution. Statement is incorrect. It was part of the 15th Finance Commission recommendation policy. Yes, one of the parameter, but in horizontal devolution. Is it okay? Horizontal devolution. Vertical devolution, formula different, 41%. Horizontal devolution, multiple parameters, 6 to be precise, were taken by 15th FC. One of them, population, that is where the total fertility rate was provided for. So not a part of 15th FC vertical devolution, but 15th FC horizontal devolution. Third one, India's TFR is lower than the replacement rate. Replacement rate is 2.1. TFR is 1.9. Right? Yes, statement 3 is correct. So right option will be option A. Only one of the statement is correct. That is a third statement, by the way. Okay. So in addition to that, I have given descriptive answer question also. Please do attempt it. Try it out. Try answer writing. These kind of questions are very important, and especially in GS paper 3. Questions are picked up mainly from current affairs. Yes, every now and then, let's say out of 7 or 8 questions, one is static, but remaining are mainly from the current affairs. Right? So give it a try. What is the importance of nominal growth? What is the importance of real growth? Is it important to achieve both or simply achieve one and sacrifice the other? Right? Just have an approach based on this. Okay. So these are the various things I wanted to discuss with you people in today's session. Do not forget, today evening at 7 p.m. Chetan sir will be taking the second session covering the current affairs from January to May 2024 international relations. If you like this initiative, do hit the like button. If you are yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Thank you. Have a great day.